And away we go. In chapter 1 of your book, The Truth About Food, what did you mean by lies?
Unfortunately, there are lots of competing interests in diet, lots of competing opinions, and famously, lies can come at us in 3 flavors: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And in the book, I divvy them up. So damned lies would really be willful deception. That's generally practiced by large entities that are exploiting us for profit. So, for instance, when there are highly processed foods, what are now referred to as ultra-processed foods, that the people making them know are not really good for human consumption. But they adorn the front of the package of this goop with some message about its fortification, for example. So let's take the most glaring example. Essentially, multicolored marshmallows being peddled to children as part of a complete breakfast. There's nothing on the front of that package that says, if you are a responsible parent, step away from the box and nobody will get hurt. That's what it ought to say. What the front of the box says is fortified with 11 essential vitamins and minerals, part of a complete breakfast. If you are a responsible parent, you will buy this and feed it to your child because they want it, and look how wonderful it is. Frankly, damn lies. Just damn lies. And they go on. And the idea that we need a new fad diet every month or every 6 months or every year, that there's a brand new way to lose weight. Big media take advantage of our gullibility. There isn't a new way for guys to get a six-pack every week or every month. There isn't a new way for women to have perfect buns every week or every month, but they keep selling us this stuff. So big publishing, big media, big food, for that matter, big pharma. Believe it or not, there are very clearly validated instances where diseases have been invented to justify the use of a drug. So it's not just bad enough that we routinely treat with polypharmacy all sorts of ill health that never needed to happen in our culture, but we actually invent diseases to justify the use of drugs big pharma couldn't otherwise sell. These are all damned lies. Then there are more innocent lies, experts who sort of topple into the vat of their own passions. So you spend your career working on a particular diet. It may just be one variant on the theme of eating well, but you devoted your career to it. So you're going to champion it, in all probability, and maybe in the process get carried away and malign the work of others. Kind of a lie. Their work may be just as valid as yours. It's not even an intentional lie, and in the book I make the distinction between the willful deception, damn lies, and just getting it wrong but then doubling down. And then there's statistics, and there's almost an endless variety of ways to use statistics to distort and to use research methods to distort. One of the things that's really important is that although science is the most powerful means we've ever devised to answer hard questions, only sense can get us to ask good questions in the first place. There's really nothing that comes direct from science to make us ask good, prudent, useful questions. So you can ask completely pointless questions, like which is better, low carb or low fat, and not specify in any way what foods you're talking about. So Coca-Cola and cotton candy is a low-fat diet. That's clearly not going to be good for people. There are variations on the theme of low-fat eating that certainly would be. On the other hand, you can have a low-carb diet that is all pepperoni, or you can have a completely plant-based, relatively high-protein approach that actually might be a really excellent diet. So the terminology is willfully misleading. It's a pointless question. We rarely get good answers to pointless questions. So there's a whole section on all the variations on the theme of statistical manipulation, usually in the service of producing the answer that was a foregone conclusion. You knew what you wanted to tell the world. And just to end this, science shouldn't work that way. Honest science is about not knowing the answer in advance, about being receptive to whatever story the data tell you. And inevitably, we all have biases. We all interpret our data, and our native biases will, to some extent, influence the way we interpret the data. But the best scientists, the ones that I respect the most, have actually published results at odds with their native preferences when that's what the data require. And that aspect of science, I think, has suffered in the modern era, and we need more of it. We need a willingness to truly ask a question and be willing to accept the answer that the evidence reveals to us, rather than knowing the answer in advance, because the only answer we're willing to accept is the opinion we already own.
In chapter 2 of your book, The Truth About Food, what did you mean by statistics?
We use statistics, for the most part, to try and differentiate between true relationships between cause and effect. Ultimately, what we care about is causality. If I eat this, will it make my health better or worse? If I eat that, will it make me live longer or less long? If I exercise, will it change my health status? If I sleep this many hours versus that many hours? Ultimately, it's all about causality. But causality is a very high bar to clear, because when you're dealing with human beings, there's a lot of stuff going on. No matter how carefully you control an intervention, we're different from one another. Every day is different from every other day. There are other variables in play. And so we use statistics to differentiate between a chance association. So, for example, if the day you get a vaccine, you happen to be struck by lightning, that doesn't mean vaccines cause lightning strikes, right? It's a very odd coincidence, but lots of people get vaccines. People rarely get struck by lightning. They could happen on the same day. It's not cause and effect. And so those rare occurrences can convince people that there is a meaningful causal pathway when there isn't, or we may fail to perceive one when there is. The tobacco industry very cleverly dissuaded us from recognizing the cause and effect of tobacco and all the many ill effects of it for many years. We use statistics to try and sort all of that out. And in The Truth About Food, I note that statistics are often used to deceive. And they can be used to bully as well. So, for example, a lot of what we know about how to live well as human beings, don't put your hand in a fire, don't lean too far out of a window in a tall building, we don't know from randomized controlled trials. We don't know from p-values. What is the p-value associated with it's a really bad idea to lean way out of a window on the 37th floor? There is none. No studies have been done. What is the p-value associated with the dangers of a bullet through your chest? There is none. And on it goes. So much of what's so important is dissociated from statistics because it's actually subsumed within the native routine of being a human being in the world and absorbing both your experience and the common experience of all around you. There's a lot that we know because every time anybody's ever done A, B happened. Throw an apple in the air, you don't need randomized controlled trials to tell you it's going to fall back down and not float away. It's what's happened to every apple that's ever been thrown in the air down here. So statistics, I think, are now being used in a sense to weaponize science. You must use a particular method, and by the way, I'm the one who decides what method is valid, and unless you use that method, you can't know what's true. And you need a particular strength of association. And I say this as someone who has run a clinical research lab at Yale for over 20 years. I say this as someone who has written textbooks on statistics. I say this as someone who has published randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analyses. I have a deep respect for the value of these tools, just like I have a deep respect for the value of the tools in my wood shop. I'm a pretty good carpenter. But I also respect how badly misused those tools could be. If you use a saw as a hammer, bad choice. If you use a hammer as a screwdriver, bad choice. So the same is true of the tools of science. Statistics is a powerful means of differentiating what looked like it might have been meaningful but was really just a fluke. Because there are flukes all the time. In a world of 7.8 billion human beings, there are vanishingly improbable things that happen to somebody every day. And those can overwhelm us and persuade us that there's some meaningful association that doesn't exist at all. Statistics is a robust defense against that and says, no, actually, we establish particular thresholds, their way of testing, to tell us, is this a real causal pathway? Is there a meaningful connection between apparent cause and apparent effect? Really important, but the reason I wrote about it in The Truth About Food is because it is very vulnerable to misuse and abuse.